Welcome to Unity Talks, where the hiring experts of Dallas-based recruiting firm Unity Search engage in lively discussion with successful business leaders to dissect their careers and how they got to where they are today, the obstacles overcome to reach their success, and steps they've taken to stay at the top of their respective fields. So listen in as we provide you with the thought-provoking conversation and ideas that keep industries moving forward.
And welcome back to another edition of the Unity Talks podcast. I'm your host, David Cathey, and we love listeners who join in and learn who we talk about, because we talk about leaders in DFW, Houston, Austin, San Antonio. And those leaders are in the field of accounting, finance, tax, and information technology. And they are, in fact, leaders. And that's what we're here to do, is learn from their story. Today's leader, I'm excited to announce, is Jim Peng. Jim Peng is a VP at ConGlobal. Jim, welcome to the show.
Thank you, David. Happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always start people out. I'm like, tell us a little bit about your current company. You've been there for a couple of months. This is a new move for you. So we're thrilled about that. And I'm sure you and your family are as well. So tell us about ConGlobal.
Yeah, very much excited about this company and the opportunity. So I think of ConGlobal as the intersection between rail and truck and marine terminals as well. So what ConGlobal does is offer terminal services that move product on and off rail, on and off trucks, and think of it as a buffer between trucks and rail and marine. So they offer terminal services, capacities between loading, unloading the containers, also does repair work and storage as well. So all of that powered by, of course, many subject matter experts in all these fields that have been working in this for decades, as well as enabled by a lot of technology that's behind it as well. So very happy to join ConGlobal.
Yeah, it sounds like it's you're almost kind of creating a one-stop shop for that intermediary transport, because you're also willing to store it. You're also willing to do, I think, repair and do the transport.
Yeah, it's really a very nice physical footprint enabled by a lot of digital capabilities.
Okay.
So when a shipper decides to move their containers from marine terminals, from say vessels, and they move it inland into a market, it probably would go by a train. And when it hits a train terminal, a railroad terminal, ConGlobal could be at one of those terminals taking those units off the train, and then could be offering the drayage services that move it into one of our storage depots as well. It sits there until the trucking company comes, picks it up, makes delivery, and at times when the empty needs somewhere to sit, they bring it back into our depot. It sits there. Any repairs that need to be made, modifications, we do those there, and then return it back to steamship lines or the leasing companies and whatnot. Really providing capacity and capabilities for the logistics value chain.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. Well, I'm sure you are thrilled about being there, and I'm sure they are thrilled about having you there. Here's what we're going to talk about. How in the world did you get there, and all the things you've learned along the way? Because Jim and I were talking, I was looking at Jim's background. I was like, oh my gosh, Jim, you have, the same number of years of experience that I do. So we're sitting right around 25, 26, and both of us have had 3 jobs.
That's right.
That is so rare these days, because I just had a conversation with a CFO earlier today in Houston. And she just said, David, I feel like people are moving jobs every 2 to 3 years. And I'm scratching my head because I don't want someone moving from this job in 2 to 3 years. I need this person here. And I look at your resume. I've obviously had that conversation today, so I'm attuned to that. And I look at your resume. I'm like, son of a gun, man. Jim's one of those people she would love to have over there. So Jim, let's start at education. You went to UT Austin, and then you got your MBA at IU, Indiana University.
That's right.
Great football. Crazy enough, we're saying great football season for IU over UT.
I know, right? I know. But through and through, hook 'em horns.
There you go.
While the season, yes.
Yeah.
Yours?
Yeah. Yeah. Crazy. If I remember, mechanical engineering. Or
civil
engineering.
Yep, you got it.
Yeah, civil engineering. and have found your way, as you described it earlier, in this role where you kind of have been a liaison between the super technical IT on the product side and creating the solutions for the business. And so you have your hand in both worlds of, does the business understand the product that we're solving? Does the product solve our customer's need? And can I make sure that the technical people deliver what we can deliver?
That's right.
And so you are having to communicate with, there's a lot of stakeholders
Absolutely.
in your role, and that's heavy communication. So tell us how you got into that from a career standpoint, and then we're going to work our way into like, what have we learned and how do you communicate and how have you gotten better at that?
Sure. Still learning and still trying to get better. So, David, to that point, if I were to start maybe in the earlier tranche of my career, it's a lot of operational touch points. So, coming out of school from a civil engineering background, there was a direct translation into civil engineering work, actually on the operating side of things, building railroad tracks and then operating railroads. So did that for my first tranche of maybe about 5 years or so there on the railroad. And so about 5, 6 different locations actually within that 5-year period of time. I feel really blessed because a lot of opportunities from a leadership standpoint, working with people who have performed many of those jobs for decades, who were teaching me on how to lead and how to manage the tasks at hand to build and operate in a railroad. And so I felt like the first 5 years was very foundational building, translating academics into practical applications. And so that first 5-year tranche then led to the next many years of industrial engineering work, where applications of Six Sigma and lean manufacturing and all that, that was part of the era in which I went into our quality team and applied learnings there to our railroad operation. So then, because of that, I went across the network to all the different railroad shops that are locomotive shops, rail car shops, and also the operating environment itself in terminals. So I was able to apply those learnings there. And then fast forward from there, went to marketing and sales. Taking, again, it's a pivot. I feel like many of these are taking some of what you knew and you moving it into a new role while you're learning a lot, like I've never done marketing or sales. Learning that part of it, but taking the foundation of what it takes to move our product, move our customer's product, and help formulate good marketing and sales products for our customers. And then from there, then moved on into actually very specifically into a technical role at that point, is to take all the learnings from the different facets of operating a railroad into bridging with our IT shop. So at the time, we were taking in a lot of trucks coming in and out of rail terminals. And how do we help their lives? How do we help their turnaround get a lot faster in and out of the facility, the accuracy, less wait time, so on and so forth. So bridging between that physical world of helping a different mode truck into rail terminals, but also handing them some technology enablers. That's where I took sort of the foundation of knowing how the business works with our IT partners to build applications that can help truly that logistics work faster and better.
Yeah. Interesting. It's fascinating to hear that even in those first tranches, the first one out in the railroad working that, applying the civil engineering background, then to an industrial focus, it sounds like you also had promotions along the way. Mm-hmm. And so why do you think they may have tapped you on the shoulder? Like, what were some of the qualities that you've been told early in your career people saw in you to say, hey, Jim, I think we're going to promote you and or perhaps you asked for the promotion, but I'm just curious about what do you think others are looking for that early in someone's career?
Um, Gosh, I guess I gotta go back many years to think about that moment in time, David. But
Well,
I
don't
would
say too many because you and I are similar here. So you,
just a few years, just a few years. Um, I think if I were to pinpoint a few qualities, um, maybe one of them was just an eagerness to learn. That's very eager to continue to absorb new knowledge from people. Um, I continue to feel like I have a lot to learn, and so maybe a lot of humbleness in the approach. Because everyone literally in our organizations can probably teach us something that we don't know. So I think I just generally have that approach about seeking advice. And then I do always feel the need to collaborate. So it's not just what I think about something, but also want to gather the voices of others. And so I feel like collaboration is a big part of it. And truth be told, there is some luck, and there is some folks that maybe believed in what I was doing as well, and so blessed in that way as well.
well, I wanted to pause on that because we have people that graduate college and they listen to this program and you graduate college and you want to conquer the world. You know,
Sure.
you walk across that stage, you have your diploma in hand and you are ready to conquer the world. And then sometimes people get into their career and maybe this isn't what I thought it was going to be, right? You kind of get that shock of maybe this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And I think everybody has to battle through those seasons in their career. And one of the things that you've mentioned a couple of times is having a curiosity and wanting to learn. You use that word. In fact, at the very beginning, when we just first started talking, I said, what you learn from a leadership standpoint. And you said, I still am leading. And then you mentioned, that's one of the things you did early on. And I think that's important for people to hear because just because you graduate school doesn't mean you stop learning. Arguably, you start learning more because it's practical application on the job as opposed to a book experience.
Absolutely.
And I think that's really important for people to hear of maybe I need to accelerate my learning. And then the second part of that is not just learning for learning's sake, but you specifically said, which I really love, is anybody can teach me something. I can learn from, so you're a VP over at ConGlobal and you're looking for maybe someone on your staff who's a third year person at ConGlobal. Like I need to pay attention to what this person is saying because I can learn something from them.
Without a doubt. I can think back to my very early years to just last week. Similar scenario where I don't know how to do something. An example would be, call it 20 plus years ago. I was on it's called a tie gang. So a tie gang is about 40, 50 people. They go out and they replace ties, railroad ties.
Mm-hmm.
And there's about 3,250 of these in a mile. And so your job is to go out there and pick out the ones that are maybe ready to be replaced and continue down the railroad tracks until you get most of them replaced. Well, when you come out of school, how do you know which one is ready to be replaced and which one isn't? Sure, you can do a visual cue of what it looks like, but that's part of learning from those who've done it for a while and say, well, how do you know? How do you tell? And start teaching me, right? And I remember I was part of the early process of learning how to classify these ties, put it into a standard process, standard operating procedure, so that we can start teaching more people how to look at it uniformly. And so maybe it doesn't stop with just that moment of learning, but also how do you scale that learning was a very early on learning from me. And 25 plus years ago, I'm not sure I learned the word scaling, but at that point was, how do I take this one moment of learning and help others maybe, curb their learning a little bit as well? So there is that. And then I think about last week, or even yesterday, as I'm helping build out our terminal operating system, a new one, and advancing it further. And how do we make this, like you said, a single pane of glass, this one-stop shop application? There's a lot of knowledge in the field on how they operate. And so what we do from a software application standpoint, of course, is to enable, to streamline, and to automate things. But you have to know how it works. If you don't know how it works, what are you automating? And so going into the field and asking a lift machine operator, first you observe, right, what they're doing. You look at your stats, and then you have to ask questions on, well, why did you do it this way? Why did you do it the other way, the other time? To ask those questions and then bake those behaviors now into your process, into your system, and now you can automate something. So that's how I approach it.
Man, I love what you said. I want to pick two things out of what you just said, but I'm still amazed that you said 20 years ago, and you said, and there's 3,250 in a mile of these railroad ties. I'm like, how do you even remember there's 3,250 in a mile? That is, that's quite astonishing.
Some of these things get imprinted.
I mean,
overall.
you just pull, and the rest of the podcast, we're gonna see what else you have stored away in there that you can just drop some knowledge on us like that. That's awesome. How do you? So I said there's two things I wanted to pick apart there. First off, is there a process or a trick or a hack? How do you expand your capacity to learn? Because it sounds like you learn from other people. Maybe there's a discipline that you utilize to learn. But I mean, I almost want to talk about learning on this program because it's so critical to your growth. And if you are a leader in an organization, you are not done learning, just like you're not done learning when you graduate. What do you do to learn, to expand your capacity of knowledge?
I want to say that now this distribution won't be precise, obviously, but there's going to be some learnings from books, from seminars. I don't know if it's 15 or 20%. And then there's going to be some where you're shadowing people, so you're kind of getting a more in-depth look at the application of it. And then there's probably hands-on project-based learning that I personally probably, attribute 50, 60+% of my learnings is how do I convert something that's just in print and into doing. One of my former colleagues, we had lunch last week, and he was saying one of the things that he really appreciated our working relationship over the years in my past companies is that I really roll my sleeve up, so to speak. So even if it's something I don't understand, and I can't code it worth a lick, but I will get in there and understand the code because it's logic at the end of the day. So how is that logic put in place? And try to understand the flow of the logic. So over the years, I've gotten better at just learning how to read code, and so that we can communicate and have a conversation about what I'm seeing versus what you intended it to do. And so that's part of my learning too, right? It's just roll the sleeve up, get into the bowels of where the work really is happening, which at the end of the day for a software is the bits and bytes of your program. So let's go look at it. Let's go look at it together.
Yeah.
What I love doing is bringing the business users who are trying to explain how something works, and the IT shop folks who have the interest as well, bring them together in working sessions, and we literally code together. It's, to me, faster. We make mistakes faster, and we're going to see it in production right there in the working session. And then it really takes a lot of lead time out of the production. So that's kind of how I've learned to approach it.
Yeah.
Not sure it's the right way, but it's been fairly effective.
Yeah, no, I think that's I think it's fascinating to learn how people learn, because I want to learn, and I want to pick up different tips and things that people do and see if I can incorporate it. and also relate to it. I think that's important. I think, you know, there's a couple of things that you said that remind me of the story. I can't really pinpoint exactly what you said that reminded me of the story, but I heard the story about Bill Gates. And I can't even remember. I'd attribute wherever I heard it from if I could remember where I heard it, but I can't. And it was Bill Gates talking to another CEO, and they were acquaintances. I wouldn't call them friends. They were acquaintances. And you know, Bill was infamous for, you know, working at all hours of the day. The guy barely slept, and they're having a conversation at like 5 or 6 in the morning. And you know, and it may be a contentious topic, you know, where they disagreed. And I think Bill said, "Well, let's get off the phone, but let's finish this conversation a little bit later." And I mean, we're talking about two CEOs here running businesses that are competing. And the guy said, you know, 4, 5, 6 hours later, 11, 12 o'clock, Bill calls him and says, and he just jumps right into where they were 6 hours earlier and says whatever he's saying. And the guy's like, I'm not even paying attention to what Bill's saying. I'm sitting there going, Bill, have you just been thinking about this for 6 straight hours? And he said, well, yeah. He goes, you got off the phone with me and you've been thinking about this for 6 hours and that's all you've been doing. He said, well, yeah. And he said, right then I knew Bill was deadly, because Bill didn't care about being right. He cared about learning and figuring out the right thing. Didn't matter to him whether he was wrong or right. It mattered getting the right thing done for his customers.
That's right.
And his company. And he didn't care who he learned it from. And he would walk away and he said, that's where you learn. People who can do that skill are deadly. And it's learning from other people and not putting your pride. I know more than you. I know better than you, which pride gets in the way, right? Mm-hmm. And a little bit of pride is good. You want to take pride in your work.
Sure.
You know, you want to have confidence. And I've just been thinking about that story. I've been doing my job too. I haven't done what Bill did where he just stopped everything to think. But I've been thinking about that story and a little bit of what you just said, learning from other people and wanting the right thing, which is we're going to code and we're going to make a lot of mistakes because that's not what you do. That's not natural to you, but that's the process that you need to go through. And so you're obviously okay with maybe a little conflict with other people in a positive way to learn and failure, because you even said, and we failed a lot, meaning fast. And so it sounds like you're leading to the more I can almost fail and try, the quicker I learn and get to success faster.
Yeah. Yes. And I think also you have to just create a safe space for that to happen, meaning when things aren't going as well, that people don't feel like they are being attributed to the reason why it's not working.
So how do you do that? What do you do for your teams?
What we do is it's symbiotic. So you have the operational team who is dependent on your code to be right. So it makes their job easier. When it's not working, it doesn't make their job easier. And so part of it is, how do we make their job still not as hard, feel that we have the urgency when we're trying to correct it and make it better in real time. So part of it is we stand up live channels with them to support throughout the day. So as they are living in the code in production and something doesn't work as well as they intended it, they would immediately be able to give us feedback and we would immediately go in and repair it. And so for them, the credibility that we're there as a safety net gives them reinforced comfort over time that they can continue to rely and support our decisions to lean forward, right? To make the mistakes because they know that we'll be there. That's that part of it. For our IT team, it's never a, well, see what you did. It's never about that. It's, well, what did we learn about this situation? And we have many sites. And so we would be able to learn from many sites and their use cases as well that can help the IT team make an even better product than what their original alpha beta version was, much quicker. So I hope that helps from the standpoint of nurturing trust. But it can't be just said, right? You have to have actions in place that help support each other. And when you're talking to operations, there's a sense of urgency that IT must be able to live with them in parallel. And when they see that you're there to help catch them, as well as if there's a major change that they've asked for, that IT pulls an all-nighter to work through it so that the next morning it's already in play. All those just builds confidence over time.
Yeah. Yeah. To pinpoint something you said, and expand on it, feedback's a gift. You have to deliver it properly and you have to have different channels. But without that feedback loop happening real time for you, like I'm just thinking of the structural operations of a business and the technology side, right? The technology team has to go in and make the changes so that when work comes the next day, everybody has 100% uptime to the degree that that's possible. That's not achievable without the proper level of feedback for them.
That's right.
So delivering feedback's important. The opposite side, I just had this conversation at 2:00 today. The opposite side of that is receiving the feedback is critical. And sometimes that can be the hardest part. You have to deliver it properly, but you also have to be in the right frame of mind that you're not criticizing me as a person. You are helping me correct the code or replace code with whatever line of business or work you're in. It's that we're trying to solve. You're not trying to solve me. You can go to a therapist or a counselor to solve me, right? And that's really hard to do. I've got to believe in your shoes, having advanced the 3 companies in 25, 26 years, and the many promotions throughout that time, you've had to go through learning, giving that feedback and receiving that feedback to get better. And that can be really challenging. How do you teach someone to receive feedback better?
Well, I think first I've got to take accountability no matter what. Because if it's, let's say, part of the project that I'm leading or the product that I'm leading, at the end of the day, I believe I'm responsible for the overall success. So if I can at least take accountability for and take responsibility for the things that aren't going well, that first will help the team feel at ease, or it would feel at least someone's got their back, so to speak. And then they can feel like they can go and take risks, right? And so that's I think an important part of it is to demonstrate that it's something that I will help be a safety net for. That's first and foremost. It feels very basic, very foundational. And then after you lay that very basic foundation, then we can build on top of it, which at the end of the day, the teams collectively need to make credibility deposits with each other. And that does take time, but I've witnessed it over and over again, where if you have the right best intentions with the teams together, then you should be able to bridge those fairly often.
Yeah. I think what you said, it sounds basic and it's this foundation. And I think that's why sometimes it's skipped, because it is so basic and it is foundational. And so we just skip past that and we move on. And then we're trying to figure out, a week later, like, why is this not working the way we wanted it to? Because you always got to go back to those basics and lay that foundation.
Yeah, I find it interesting that there's obviously a lot of books and academics and SOPs are written around change management. In truth, change management is hard, extremely hard, because you got to stay with it. You've got to not move past it, and you got to continue to recycle and iterate on it. And it takes a tremendous amount of time to do it right. It's almost easy to keep inserting shiny new, and keep moving. But the truth is, if you don't have a check-in process, you look back, there's a lot of things that may not have gone the way you want it to. And some of it's because of, sure, there's user adoption, whether they're ready for it, whether you're ready for them, frankly. And the truth is, I think most of us at our first release, second release of our product, a lot of times maybe it's Happy Path Plus, but really there's a lot of fringe cases that add up to be meaningful. Material moves throughout the day to add up that maybe the original Happy Path Plus didn't address. But if you stay with it from a change management standpoint, then you truly will have a robust product in the end. But it probably takes more than 1 or 2 cycles, though.
Interesting. Okay, so earlier I said there were 2 things that you said. We've got to one of them. So I've got to get back to this other one. You were talking about learning and your process of learning and how to build your capacity of knowledge and how you do that. And one of the things that you talked about is about 50% of it is, actual hands-on work. And I'm fast forwarding to where we are today. And ChatGPT can do everything. Didn't you know that, Jim? I mean, it can do everything, right? Gemini, all those things can do everything for. So I find myself living in this world now where instead of learning it or building my capacity to learn, why would I do that when I have ChatGPT? I'll just continue to go to it and ask it to solve whatever problem or finish whatever sentence for me or answer whatever question I have. And I think it's good as a resource, trust but verify.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it diminishes your capacity to learn. I mean, I feel like learning is a muscle. It's a skill that can be developed. And I worry about that taking it away because from a coding standpoint, why wouldn't you now just go, well, I don't need to learn that because I can have ChatGPT code that for me. And so you now don't have that skill set. And that may hurt you in your career to the point where you got today was or is not achievable. Does that make sense?
Sure.
What are your thoughts regarding just falling on that? We'll just call it a crutch, falling on AI as the crutch to solve those problems. How does that impact people's careers?
I think I'm still learning how to leverage it more and when to leverage it less. I know I'm still learning. And I think all of us will probably go through this evolution right now. So I think in many, many ways, these models, generative AI models, are extremely helpful. It helps us maybe take some of the basic level work and certainly can organize it and help us have a better start. I've used it many times that way. Outline the structure of a particular project path. Maybe even do code reviews as well to find where the issues are. I can see the application of that be a productivity booster. No, there's no doubt. To your point, it's not perfect. So the question is, where is the imperfection? And is it just 5% imperfect or is it 20% perfect? And the 5% that it is imperfect, is it really mission critical that it's being imperfect on or being wrong on, period? And that's where I think we are continuing to try and build a confidence muscle around that as well. I know that I've seen many cases in which I'm glad that I quadruple checked it because the output has a fatal mistake in it. So I do think it's getting better, faster, better, in a very compressed time. However, I think we're all still learning how to leverage it so that it can indeed do some of the repetitive tasks for us quicker or setting the foundational things faster for us. So Like if you're going to, make a typical, protocol, right? You want to just write a typical protocol. Instead of typing all those lines, you can have it generate that for you pretty quickly, very, very standard. But you have a very base, but if you start to get more advanced in the agentic realm, then you probably have a lot more to check on to make sure that it truly is processing the way you intend it to process. I am seeing it that way.
Okay, so I'm going to pose a scenario to you.
Sure.
I'm fascinated by this. I'm going to pose this scenario. I'd love for you. I'm going to put you on the spot. Okay.
Go for it.
And I'd love to know how maybe you solve this problem. Okay, so you have an employee working for you, and you give them an assignment, and they do the assignment, and they give you whatever the answer is. Solve the problem. And you're sitting across from them, and you say, "Man, this is fantastic. How'd you get there?" "I just put it in ChatGPT and found it." Okay, but what's the theory or logic behind it? Well, I don't know. I mean, ChatGPT found it. How do we get them to realize that in certain situations, understanding the theory or the logic behind how they got to the solution is equally, or if not more important than what the actual solution is? Because I think as we continue in the new world that we are in, we have, Epictetus says, in every situation, there are two handles that you can grab. One handle is a manager says, "Great, got the solution," and they move on. And part of me, maybe whole of me, if I'm candid, is like, well, that's sad. Because how does that employee learn? The other handle is, well, I want you to know how or why this is what the answer is. And so how do we solve that problem that's going to be more prominent in the future?
It sounds philosophical, but let me.
You see where I'm going, though. Like it's bothering me.
I'll give you my 2 cents on it. My 2 cents is it depends. It's situational. So let's pretend you are asking it. The assignment is, what's the weather going to be like tomorrow? And I know you can just look at your iPhone, but let's say they went in there and they ChatGPT did or Gemini did, right? And they came back with 76 degrees with 80% chance of shower. That might be okay. It's a very transactional question and answer, unless you truly want the person to explain to you how the weather works. If it's not the latter, then I think transactionally it's okay in that situation.
Because we're not meteorologists or whatever.
Maybe, right? You're just looking for that one thing. However, if you're looking for, well, what are my risk and rewards in taking this action in this space? Do I do decision A or decision B? That type of question, I think, merits beyond just what AI tells you. Mm-hmm. It merits, well, how do you back that up? Mm-hmm. And how do you back it up? Not how you prompted it to tell you how you would back it up. And so in that case, I do believe is a very different scenario from the first one, which is just a transactional ask. And then what's even more important, I believe, David, is it is the muscle that you're training over time. So you asked the question, should I make this business decision this way or that way? And give me some reasons why I should or I shouldn't. You're training yourself, that person, on how to think through it. And so that's why it's even more important for them to work through it. Now, you park that all now aside and say, now how do you partner with the AI aspects of it? I do believe if you had the bench strength and the bandwidth and all that, you probably ought to teach your internal AI tools on how to help you think through these things in the future. So you're putting in more inputs and outputs. And as you go through more of these strategic studies, then over time, you will have a model that's internally built that's going to help you make these decisions, maybe faster, more scalably in the future tense.
Yeah.
But that will take, I think that will take human beings training it and taking it through its steps.
Yeah, you've given me a happy medium there. You really have. You've given me a happy medium because, and maybe it's, old dad Dave where I'm like, no, I want you to know why.
76 degrees.
I want you to know I want you to know your Swedish model and how to use it for the wet. No, I want you to know why. But that happy medium I do like is by the inputs and the outputs and the inputs and outputs. You are teaching it to teach you why or how or what that solution is. So I like that. Okay, Jim, last question for you. Again, I'm going to put you on the spot here since we're wrapping up. So we have listeners listening to us today, and they've heard you talk about learning. They've heard you talk about a little bit about AI. They've heard you talk about giving and receiving feedback. If you were to just take everything and boil it down to, it's a big ask, maybe just one thing they could start doing tomorrow. Someone could start implementing practically, not theory, practically tomorrow. What guidance would you give?
I always found 2 is easier than asking for 1.
All right,
but
give me
I'll
2.
just say
I love it.
what I think any one of us, especially your question to the younger audience, then you can start volunteering. Like, if there are projects, if there are needs, if someone has a task, you can start volunteering. Raise your hand more. Getting more involved, I think, makes a lot of difference. So you're stepping up to learn. You're stepping up to take responsibility. You're standing up to expand your scope. I do believe that's an important quality. It goes beyond your lane, and you're also demonstrating your willingness to do more than just for yourself. And I think that's an important quality. I really do.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, that answer right there, if you were to take all the podcasts we've done and the number of times I've asked that question, using your voice, you've heard it said, using your voice, volunteering, taking responsibility, trying to get involved, roll up your sleeves. That is the number one answer we've received from all the executives by far. It's not even close. So if you are listening to this and you are trying to see, how do I improve my career? You know the answer. Volunteer, use your voice, ask for the assignment, ask to get involved. That is the number one way to get involved. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us. Jim, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
You bet. And for our audience, we will see you next time. Thanks so much.
If you're looking for the next step in your career or the missing piece for your team, Unity Search has you covered. Whether it's finance and accounting, tax services, information technology, or human resources, Unity Search is here for you with experienced and dedicated hiring professionals. Reach out today and take the next step. Unity Search, placing you first.